at this conference. That dissipates fast in the big building, but we had 320 registrations plus 60 people come to the executive breakfast. So I think, you know, that my feeling was right. You guys are interested in commercial open source, and you are interested in mobility solution, because that's probably two of the reasons why you came. But back to the RPG, you know, what do you do with RPG? Back in my day, I used to work at IBM. I was the actual manager of the COBOL compiler, so I'm an old COBOL guy. The AS400 COBOL compiler was my product. I turned into the business manager for the AS400, and I was actually the guy, or one of the guys on the team, where we brought the C compilers and whatnot and opened up the AS400. And the first people whose attention that grabbed was Cognos. And Cognos pulled me out of IBM because they said, we want to be the first to bring our product, which was native to HP. It was written in C, to the AS400. So myself and, where's Joe? Joe's here somewhere. Joe Johari went to Cognos. We did that for them, and then we went from there. So deep down, I'm a compiler guy, I'm a development environment guy. But it strikes me that over the years, as I kind of followed this, and having gone to Cognos, every year IBM would come out there, and what you kind of liked about RPG was it was really a prescriptive solution. You kind of drank the IBM Kool-Aid, and it was all about the AS400, and it was all about RPG, and that thing was so tightly wound up and integrated with the system itself. It was like really a holistic or a beautiful system that worked together and enabled you to develop transaction-oriented applications that were perfect for SMB with really, really fast response time, right? You had great response time and super high productivity, not web type productivity, but old school type productivity and this is still true today, right? Old school type productivity to me is you have a clerk that gets the orders that come in through the fax machine or whatnot, and there's a big stack of paper like that, and your job is to enter those orders into the system. So I'll challenge any one of you, to a contest where you get that stack of orders and somebody's sitting in front of an old ugly looking green screen, and somebody else with that same stack of orders sitting in front of a beautiful looking mouse applications, and then you tell me who does the orders faster, right? But hey, that's not the game in the world of the internet, because the business advantage that everybody got with the internet is to say, hey, why don't I outsource that job that the person, because that person who's entering the order, I had to pay for them. I had to put them in an office, and why don't I outsource that job to the user themselves, right? And get you as a user to put your own order in place, or go figure out wherever your own, silly thing is that you want, or do your own customer support. So from a business, the reason this stuff took off so well is because they saved money. They pushed the work out to the user, right? So they laid off all the clerks, and then the users the computer does the work, right? So what's my point there? Well, my point there is the 5250 interface is oriented to productivity of the clerk. When you're out on the web, the productivity of the clerk isn't the thing, because remember, 5250, you have to train them on the function keys. And, you need training to use a 50. On the internet, it doesn't matter how many you can do. It just matters that you can do it. So usability counted a lot more. So what you wound up with is, as you go through that sort of transition from the clerk doing the orders to serve yourself through the web, you wound up with a pressure on your user interface, because now you have to make it easier to use, intuitive, etc. And so how do you do that? So we thought it was magic, the fact that we could take the 5250 interface and have it go out on the web, but then you realize that doesn't do it. Maybe that would mean that the clerk that used to work at home can output the orders. The clerk that used to work at the office can now do the orders at home. But that's not really what we're trying to do. We're trying to, to really get the business gains, we want the end user to be able to do it themselves. So now you're stuck with the dilemma. The screen doesn't look good. I have to put a fresher user interface on top of it. I have to put a different user interface. And then we came up with there's all kinds of tools, etc., that you can maybe reface, various different iterations of that. We saw some of the things that seem to stick here today is the use of something like PHP to put a nice, fresh user interface on top of your existing applications. But throughout all that, what happened is RPG used to be a nice, prescriptive, IBM told you what to do, you followed IBM, and they led you, this was the most productive development environment on the planet. And as you went along, every year IBM, all those years ago, every year IBM would lecture you and tell you something new. They would tell you, you have to drop your RPG now because we're all going small talk, or you have to drop your RPG now because we're all going SAA, or you have to drop your RPG now and go because we're all doing sign-on now, or you have to drop your RPG because we're all going C, and then you have to drop your RPG because we're all going C++, and you have to drop your RPG, and you guys better not do that anymore because we're now all going Java, and then you better drop your RPG because, what else? EGL, every year would be something new, and they'd be sitting there wagging you better, retrain yourself, or else you'll be out of, your job, and people just sort of stuck to their gun. They're still going to continue to use it, and so every year they're lecturing you about whatever you have to do, whatever you're supposed to be upgrading,